What's up, guys? So as the title says, in this tutorial we're going to be learning about how to make realistic fire in Cinema 4D with Pyro and Redshift. If you're working on a project and you need some realistic fire, you might want to check out my template pack that I just released, Real Fire, on Gumroad. It's a little over 25, 26 actually, presets or templates for Pyro for Cinema 4D and shaded in Redshift with lots of different procedural setups for lots of different types of fire, different scales, different situations, small fire, big fire, medium fire, tiny fire, all lots of different setups. And it also comes with 20 something shaders so that just working with Pyro becomes a lot faster and a lot easier when you already have a lot of bases to start from, or a lot of when it comes to the shaders, a lot of looks that you can start from that you can tweak from there, because setting up all that stuff can be kind of time consuming. So check out Real Fire on Gumroad if that's something that you're interested in. And beyond that, let's get to the tutorial. All right, let's make some fire. So one of the first things to think about when thinking about fire and pyro is there's really three main things to think about. There's the emitter, there's the pyro object, and then there's the shader. And all three of those things have a huge impact on how the fire is going to look. And I think that it's good. At some point, you're going to be going back and forth between those three things. But I think it can be good to sort of take them, at least in the beginning, in a 1, 2, 3, first, second, third sort of a process where you start with the emitter, then you move on to the pyro object, and then you move on to the shader. And then there's going to probably be a lot of tweaking after you've sort of like done a first pass. So first we're going to start with an emitter. And I'm going to start this by making a circle. Bring it down a little bit. I'm going to also bring my little guy in here just so we can kind of think about the scale of this. So yeah, I think that works. And yeah, we'll just make like a ground fire. Let's add a displacer. I'm going to add a noise to that and give it a bunch of height. Go back to the circle and let's add some divisions. And then I'm going to come in here and increase the scale of this by a lot. And let's just find a shape we like, maybe something like that. I'm going to duplicate this displacer. And in this one, I'm going to lower the size of that, lower the intensity here. Okay, so maybe something like that. Let's go back into the first one, add some animation speed. See, what does that look like? Yeah, I just want this to be moving pretty slow. And the second one, let's maybe add some here as well. All right, so we got this kind of amoeba. Let's give ourselves a little more time. Let's do 250. All right, looks good. So let's extrude that. Where are you? And we don't need any height, so we just got this flat plane like that. And that's what we're gonna emit from. Okay, so let's grab this and Simulation, Pyro. Okay, so by default, this is what we're going to get. You've all probably done and seen this before. I already know that that's obviously way too low res, and I can work my computer's fast enough to where we can work at, let's see, what does 3 look like? Yeah, let's keep it at 3 for now. We're still gonna up the resolution eventually. So let's go to the emitter. So as I said, we're gonna start with the emitter, see how far we can take things with that. Instead of emitting from the surface, I'm gonna emit from points. If we press play now, what you're gonna notice is that we're just emitting from the sides, because if we look at this mesh, oh yeah, okay. Yeah, there's no points because it's just an n-gon. So we're going to come into the caps of the extrude and switch this to regular grid so that we get some geometry. So maybe, I think 4 is probably good. So we're going to emit from those points. This is already, so what we're, as you just saw, if we go back to the emitter, go back to surface, what we've got here is just this very regular stream just going up, which doesn't particularly look all that great, in my opinion. It's too, doesn't have enough chaos to look like realistic fire. The little bit of variation that you have in there is because of the noise here in the emitter. If we turn that off and we press play, then you really just have, you know, just this big tower of stuff. Here, this is the turbulence that's giving us this. If you turn the turbulence off, well, just so we can see it and understand where things, useful to understand where things are coming from. Not smooth spatially, just the turbulence. Bring that to 0. Okay. And that's the vorticity. If we turn off the vorticity, so you can see we just kind of have a mushroom at that point. All right, so let's bring all that stuff back to the default. We want to keep that stuff on for now. And go back into the emitter and turn this back on. But what you're gonna see me do here is a lot of stuff where I'm gonna be trying to bring a lot of variation into this, because the CG-ness of this is really coming from, at the beginning default settings, there's a huge lack of variation and variety, and in real life, fire is burning a thing, usually depending on what's burning, and there's going to be variation all over the place. It's probably going to be like wind blowing, the fuel, whatever it is that's burning, has areas that are more dense, areas that are less dense, all sorts of different things that are happening in the physical real world that are making the fire have a ton of chaos and a ton of variability. We are going to just kind of like be manually doing as much as possible to bring in that organic chaos that makes the fire sort of like feel real and alive. So one of the things that you can do, as I just showed, was instead of emitting from the surface, let's emit from points. And that'll already give us a little bit more going on here. There's a lot of points. That's why it's like, it's a pretty turbulent. That might be too much. Let's just see, once we're, like I said, eventually we're going to lower the size of this. So let's do 1.5 here and see if that's still kind of a lot. Sort of, yeah, I don't really want it to be pushing out that much. So let's go back to our, let's bring this back to 3. And let's go in here regular grid, and let's put this maybe to 5 instead of 4 and see what that looks like. 3. Okay, that's actually not because of the points. That's because of the velocity, which maybe I'll keep that. That's actually okay. So the velocity, which is set to, it's because our thing here is moving. It must start off and have a move that way. If we go in here and let's just turn this off and see. Yes, I think it's just the movement of these points that's kind of pushing stuff around because our velocity is set to movement. So, which I think that's fine. Let's just make sure that that's where it's coming from. If we put set to movement to 0 and then turn this back on. Yeah, so that's where that's coming from. And it's actually good. Let's just leave that. So let's put set to movement back to, where are you? 100 for now. And yeah, that gives us some chaos. Now, one thing, this is mostly going to be fire, so we don't need nearly as much density. So I'm going to lower the density to 1. See what that looks like. I think we can even go to 0.5. That's kind of a lot. I might change the set to movement to, let's say, 40. Okay, that's a little bit better. All right, so this is what we've got so far. I still think I don't need even that much density, so let's set this to 0.2. I do want a little bit of smoke, but not much. All right, that's a bit better. I think this is, now we're looking better. Okay, so now another thing, and yeah, that's enough points. So now we're going to go to our noise, because even though if we look at this, so it's not emitting exactly the same everywhere, but it's still pretty uniform. So if we take our low clip and our noise, bring that up a lot, just so that we can see, this will let us visualize about like the scale and what's going on with it. So you see, we can kind of, that might be too much. Let's maybe bring it to around 50. Okay, so we can see about how big the noise is in there. And before we do, I think that's probably like a good scale. So I'm going to take the low clip, maybe let's do that around 20, and then I'm going to start to increase the animation speed. This is pretty fast here. What that's going to do is, instead of us getting these long streams of unbroken temperature, we're going to get like flicks and wicks of flames, because the temperature is being broken up more. So we've got some of that. I think I might bring it up even more, maybe even double that. So now it's moving pretty fast. The animation of the noise. The thickness, which is the radius of emission from these points, is really big right now. It's at 10. I'm going to lower this a lot. Let's bring that to 2. What is my voxel? It's at 3. Okay, so that's going to be too small for now. Let's do it at like 3.5. just a little bit bigger than the voxel. Okay. Let's go ahead and bump this down to 2 actually now. All right. It might be a little too fast. Maybe. Yeah, that's a little bit too fast, so let's bring this back down. A lot of adjusting. All right, that's a bit nicer. That's looking good. I'm going to increase how much temperature we've got going. Let's bring this to 5,000. I want things to be hotter for a little bit longer, a little bit taller flames. All right, so that's looking pretty good. So another thing that we can do, along with the temperature, let's put that just a little bit higher. All right, that looks pretty good. So along with that, when you emit from points, so divergence is another setting that will add a bit of like almost like explosiveness to the sim. But when you emit from points, this just a tiny bit of this goes a really long way. Like if we set this to 1, it's going to be way too much. Yeah, you see everything just explodes. So let's set this to say like 0.05. Okay, and you can see that that's giving us a lot more. It's a lot more going on now. And let's just get a preview of what that might look like with a higher res. So we're not going to work at this resolution, but we'll probably end up at a resolution like this. Okay. It's looking all right. It's very, very hot. So let's go back to 2. One thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add a couple of sub steps in. So let's increase our minimum sub steps to 1 and our max to 4. Obviously, the voxel size and sub steps, these things pretty dramatically change how the sim looks. But as you increase these, everything is going to move slower. So there's a balance between increasing those and while you're working, let's turn off the work plane. Okay. We can also start to do the first little bits of setting stuff up for preview rendering. Let's make a plane here, give it some dark colors with not much reflection, just a black plane, and I'm just going to bring it kind of below everything. And we'll just start off with a default Pyro shader. We're going to build our own shader, but this is just something where we can get a little bit of a preview of what things are looking like. I'm also just going to go ahead and drop in an HDR. All right, so we can start to see this is a different file, see what things are looking like. Okay, doesn't look like much yet, but that's fine. All right, so we've pretty much just stuck in the emitter. We haven't touched the Pyro object yet. And as I said, I think that it's good to kind of push this as far as you can before you move on. And I think that this is pretty good. And let's go ahead and move on to the Pyro object. So one of the first things I'm going to come in here and do is go down to temperature, and this temperature smoothing factor, I'm going to lower that a lot. Let's lower that to about 20%. Just so you can, let's see if we can see the difference there. It's a little, can be a little hard to see what's changing, but it's smooth. Let's bring it all the way down to 0. You can see things are a little bit more chaotic. Maybe 10%. Okay, that's looking pretty good. I also, so what do we have? This is at 3.5 and this is at 2. Let's bring this down to 2.5. All right. Actually, there's one thing I forgot about before we get into the Pyro object. Something where we can get even more variation just from the emitter is, let's just disable the emitter right quick. Let's go back to our source right here, and let's add a vertex map. And I'm just going to add a random field. Let's call this temp, or temp mask actually, so we remember what it's here for. And let's increase the scale and go to remapping and take this contour mode to curve. And we just want, I don't want any areas that have no temperature, but just less. So maybe about right there. And then we're going to have this animation speed be pretty high. So let's just see what that looks like. Even faster. Yeah, we like that. All right, so let's go back into our emitter, turn this back on, go to temperature, and under temperature map, let's name this vertex map. So we're going to call this temp mask underscore VM vertex map. And let's go in here and put this in temperature. And let's see what that looks like. There we go. So yeah, that looks pretty good. So you can see now we went from it being kind of like these big, long, unbroken streams of the temperature to now now we've got like more licking, more of that kind of look in the fire, which is good. That's what we want. What do we have? This is at 2.5. I'm slowly also just kind of increasing the resolution of this as I work, and kind of as more sort of becomes sort of clear, I kind of am increasing the resolution as I go so that I can still kind of have a speedy feedback loop. But also, if you work too long at a low resolution, when you up your resolution, you're going to get a completely different simulation. So you kind of want to increase it as you go. So I think I'm going to come here, set this to 1.5, And let's go here and decrease this to 2. Okay. All right. So I want these flames to be a little longer, and I can do that by adding more temperature, but instead we're going to move on to the Pyro object now, and I am going to take the temperature dissipation and drop that a little bit so that it hangs around a little longer. There we go. Beautiful. Okay. Yeah, that's about what I wanted there. You can also see what that looks like in our sort of preliminary render again. You got to move forward a frame. If the Pyro's not showing up, just move forward a frame. In the newest version of Cinema 4D, that happens. All right, so that looks a lot better than where we were. Still looks pretty blobby and fake, but it's a lot better. We haven't touched shading yet. This is still just the default Pyro shader, so that's pretty good. So, what do we want to do now? All right, so this smooth spatially, I'm going to turn this off. And subtle, but that's just going to kind of like, again, get rid of some of the smoothness. And then I'm going to up the turbulence a bit, up the frequency a bit, increase the incremental octave strength, maybe by 0.2. Okay, so one thing, if you're watching this, if you've gotten this far, you might be thinking, where are you pulling these values from? Because I'm going through and I'm messing with stuff. I'm saying, I'm like, oh yeah, put this to this, put this to this, put this to this. All I can really tell you is that honestly, it's just been a lot of trial and error. As you've seen at the beginning of the video, I made a Pyro pack with a bunch of presets. I got to know these settings. I can't really like give you a super technical breakdown of exactly like what's going on you know in the sausage. Like, I don't like, in terms of just like all these different settings, I honestly don't understand at a super high level, like or at a super low level, better is a better way to say it, like how this sausage is made. But I've just done this a bunch of times at this point, and so I kind of have an idea of what affects what and what's going to change things. Um, so I don't have a whole lot of like good advice in regards to, other than just do it a lot or buy my pack in terms of like how to get this. And you just gotta kind of like, I've read the documentation, obviously. I think it's, no offense to Maxon, I think that documentation for Pyro is pretty buns. It's like really hard to understand. It's very technical. And yeah, in terms of just like needing a human being to just say like, yeah, okay, it's the incremental octave strength. Just kind of break it down. Like, what does that do? It's like there's not a lot of that in there. Um, but yeah, like the what I kind of got is like this initial octave scale is just kind of like the overall scale of the turbulence, and then like within that there's kind of like a tree like multiplier where at each step the turbulence sort of becomes more complex, and something turbulence, blah blah blah, whatever. Like, play with these settings. Like I said, I just kind of through trial and error got a sense for how to work with this. Okay, so this is where we are now, which at this point, this is looking pretty good. We can also, let's go in here and change the source of our turbulence to the temperature, increase the source strength. Let's see how that affects things. And yeah, it's looking pretty good. One thing that's probably good to test right now, let's go to our renderer. Let's change it from Redshift to the viewport renderer and do the preview range. Yeah, that's good. And let's just do a quick play blast so we can kind of see in real time what things are looking like. As long as the sim is still not too heavy, you can run these play blasts like this without caching the sim. Once it starts to get heavy, it'll start to like skip frames and do stuff like that, and then you'd have to cache the sim. Right now, it's all still pretty light, so yeah, we can just kind of just play back. All right. Okay. Not too bad. It's a little slow. So let's go to in turbulence. Let's go to the turbulence time scale. Let's put this up to maybe like 125. And let's see that again. All right, we can. Yeah, that's a little better. Even more, actually. Let's maybe do 135. And as things start to move faster, you might want to increase substeps. So let's just see for a second if we're like getting gaps in the fire. Not really. So I think we might be good on substeps. Yeah, let's leave that. And let's do another quick play blast. The fire is a bit long now. We might dial things back a little bit eventually. But it's not bad. It's okay. Yeah, that looks better. I think that's good. Actually, once I up the resolution and lower the size of the thickness on the points, they'll probably get smaller. Let's just preview that. So let's drop this down to what? Let's see, 0.9, and then let's bring this down to 1. That might be too small. Let's do 1.5. or we could do more points. Yeah, it's kind of nice. Let's go in here and see if we do 2. 2 is a lot more. Let's do 2.5 maybe. Okay. So as we start to make all these changes, things start to get a little bit heavier, but also there's just like a lot more. You can just see that there's a lot more information in there, a lot more variation. It's looking pretty nice. Let's change this back to Redshift. Do an IPR. Okay. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. For the default shader. Let's see, what else do we want to change in here? The vorticity. Let's change our vorticity source to temperature, and then let's see, put that up to 2. Let's see what that looks like. So the vorticity is like the swirling force, but visually what I've found is that can kind of add like sort of like a high frequency noisiness to it. Looks pretty good. It's nice. We'll leave that. Okay. Let's see what else. So then there's shredding. Shredding kind of adds this pushing and pulling force inside. It can help sometimes, just a little bit. Can add a little bit more variation. And yeah, it's looking pretty good. Okay. All right. Yeah, like these little poking bits. That's that's the shredding. It also could just be the resolution, but let's get rid of that and see how things look. We might not need that. Things are already looking pretty broken up. The radius also might be too small. Yeah, I think we'll do without the shredding. I think things are looking pretty good without that. Okay. Yeah, looks good. Good. Been using that. Okay. So I think we are probably good to, because you can just kind of tweak this all day long. So now let's start shading this. Quick, before, obviously I'm in this tutorial, I'm just going to go ahead and completely build a shader from scratch, but not before I do a quick plug for my Real Fire template set, which comes with a bunch of shaders. Just in case you followed the tutorial this long, or you do all this work and you're like, I'd rather just drag and drop a shader on here. So let's just go to ground fire, ground fire, ground fire. We've got a bunch of different ground fires. Maybe let's try oil fire, see how that looks. Explosive always looks pretty cool. Um, what else? Let's just go with these. See what these look like. Let's open up our, you know something, we should probably save this also. Different scene. Okay, so that's our default Pyro shader. That's what we've got. Doesn't look too bad. Now let's try some of the shaders from the Real Fire set. This is what, Ground Fire 3? Yep. Ground Fire 2. Almost looks exactly the same. Ground Fire 1 will probably be a little different. Yeah, that one has more noise. Ground Fire 4 is more of a white fire. It's more sort of overexposed. Also has a lot of noise. Oil Fire looks pretty similar to those guys. And Explosive will be more extended. Yeah, that goes all the way up there. So yeah, that's one of the benefits of the set, is that if you can just do a sim that looks good, that you've got moving pretty good, you can just start dragging and dropping materials onto it and get something that looks pretty good, and then you can just go into any one of these and just start tweaking stuff to get it to look exactly right. Okay, you paid the toll for my for me shilling my product for the rest of the actual education. So let's go in and let's create a new material, and we're going to make a standard material. I think the Pyro volume is obviously good for just kind of, getting something on quick that you can then mess with, adjust these settings. Sure, but yeah, I found that have a bit more control with the standard volume. So let's jump in there. I'll press C and say start spelling it right. Volume scalar attribute. And we're gonna probably have a few of these. So I'm gonna do this, go to Pyro output, and let's import the temperature, and let's bring in a ramp. And let's also do a change range. And drop that in there, and let's drop this into temperature. And with just that, let's just see what things, let's kind of like watch things as we build them up. Oh yeah, gotta press play. And move forward a frame. Okay, doesn't look like a whole lot. Just a box. Okay. So one of the things we're probably going to want to do Okay, and let's also go in here and do the density. Do a similar thing here. Okay, so we can see our density right there. And let's see what we can do with our, we'll get our temperature in here. Mm-hmm. So let's bring another one of these guys in here. Bring another ramp. And I'm gonna drop this in here, drop this in here, drop this in here. Okay. Let's take this out of there. And for now, just do that. So that we can focus on, okay, I forgot to turn the temperature scale on. There we go. So we want to make sure that you go in here and actually basically like say, yeah, you've got some emission. All right, so now we can see this. And actually now what I want to do is come in here and delete that. And yeah, let's bring this density back. Okay. All right. Now we're where I was expecting. I forgot the scale right here. Okay, so what we want to do essentially is kind of add some breakup into the fire and the temperature. So let's just make some adjustments here. And so you can see that like you kind of have to, it takes some tweaking to figure out like where things kind of need to be. But you kind of want to lower the temperature in some areas so that the fire is not just kind of like this linear gradient from the hottest to the cool parts. You want to kind of break that up a little bit. So let's see. Let's grab that. Or actually, let's take you and bring you down here. We can see. All right. Maybe bring it in a little bit. All right, what do we got? That's at 2000. Let's go in here. Do that. Lower. Okay. Don't want. Let's Too much density there. So this one kind of acts as like a multiplier for these values, for that kind of noisy value, so that you can get your kind of intensity the way you want it. So things can be more orange, or they can be more like white and overexposed. You can see about how much fire to smoke ratio you want. Okay, it looks pretty good. Let's see here. Whoops, go back. You can also play with these, with this noise, with these range min and max. You can just kind of, if you start to mess with these, you'll see that they have a pretty dramatic impact on how things look. Right click just to get it back to default. Just want to kind of show you what tweaking them does. Okay, let's put that one back. And I think the defaults though are working pretty well. I don't need to, I'm not gonna mess with these. Also, if you increase this noise, you can also bring in some variation with that and just play with these. Depending on the sim, that can help add a bit more variation. Like that looks kind of cool. Sometimes this can like look a bit weird when it's animating, like just when we're looking at a still like this, it maybe like kind of looks kind of cool, but like when it's because it's basically just kind of I mean, I don't really know, but it's just kind of adding some noise to it, but it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the simulation. So yeah, there can be some issues with that. All right, let's go in here and let's, are you connected to anything? Okay, you're extra. Don't, oh, let's leave it there for now. Okay, so let's see. This is at 2000. This is in the density. Oh, let's just see. All right, let's put this back to 2000. There's not, we don't have that much density, so that's the whole thing here. But we do have density down here, which if we increase that, you can see that the density becomes really dense. And that kind of, I mean, it's kind of interesting. But yeah, we don't want that. As a matter of fact, let's see here. More density will kind of give you better sort of like dark spots in the fire, but I don't want it to be that dense. Yeah, not like that. So let's, but yeah, in here it would be kind of nice. So that's a little bit, that noise kind of adds a little bit more, but yeah, no, that's too much. Yeah, this isn't going to do anything without that. And yeah, so you just kind of got to play with these settings a little bit. But it's already looking pretty nice, I think. And we can check it on some different frames just to see. All right, so let's just leave that. And let's see what things look like at the beginning. I mean, we probably do some pre-roll with this, just so we don't have to see these the first frames can kind of look weird a lot of times. But I mean, that looks pretty good. Let's give a few more frames. Yep, not bad, not bad. Cool, cool. Let's pause Redshift and take it further down the line of the simulation. Okay, so maybe about right there. And yeah, I think that's looking good. How's this? Okay, let's go in here. If we increase the scatter, the density, I know we don't have very much, but I am a little bit like, we bump that up. But it'll probably do it in the places where I don't want it. Yeah, it's gonna do it at the bottom first. So let's just leave that. Do we even need that to be that high? Actually, let's just put that to 1. Yeah, that's not really, this isn't even really making a difference. Good to know. How about you? Will you make a difference? Same thing. The density basically is stronger down here than it is up here. So it's always going to show up at the base of the sim versus up here. There's some stuff you can do to, like with masking, to affect that, but we're not going to do that right now. Okay, so this could work, and we could call this done. And so, depending on what you want, this might be, you know, this might be good, and this might work. What I've found, especially looking at reference and yeah, just doing this a lot, is I don't like this big blob at the emission source. And if you look at the like the examples, the Pyro examples, and also if you get my pack, what you'll see is there are certain shaders that say Den's mask, like this guy right here, ground fire Den's mask. That stands for density mask. And so in these shaders, let's just grab this one. I don't know what it'll look like on this sim, but let's just drop it on and see. So we would probably need to still go in here and tweak this. Because we haven't set up the density to work with this. But basically what's happening is the density is being used as a mask to hide certain areas of the sim. So you can see as I pull this closer and closer here, oops, we're getting rid of, oops, this area down here. It's getting like thinner. It's at 99, let's say 99.8, right? So we have a lot less down here because that's actually how things look when they're on fire. They don't have that big blob at the bottom. They, it's just like the flame is like the brightest part. Whereas in this shader we just built, you've got this really bright area at the bottom here, which looks kind of fake, and I want to do something about that. But I might still want smoke because if you do, because basically what you would need to do is have your density be the shape of the mask. So it's not going to be up here doing the normal thing that it would is supposed to do as smoke. It's down here masking this area. So you sort of like can't use it. In those examples, it's just fire with no smoke. Now, if you want fire and smoke, basically what you really need is something to act as a mask. Luckily, we've got another thing that we haven't used yet, which is fuel. So we haven't used any fuel in this simulation so far. We're not even emitting any fuel from our emitter. So now if we go back to our emitter and go to fuel, turn this on, if we press play, this whole thing is going to explode big time. To the point where I don't even really want to do it. Let's actually save this. So we'll save this as tutorial fire. Just in case. Yeah, I'm not even going to do that. I don't even want to tempt fate. If we press play, especially since we are emitting from points, this is going to explode like crazy. But what we're going to do is we're going to have this emit. We're going to go to the Pyro output, and in here, go to fuel, and psych, just kidding, under fuel combustion, the fuel burning rate I'm going to set to 0. Density per fuel I'm going to set to 0. Temperature per fuel, 0. Don't, all this is 0. And let's go to what we're looking at, volume to draw, and let's just change this to fuel. So all we're going to see now is the fuel. And this is what we get. Now, if I want this to act as a mask for that bottom part, I really don't want it to behave like this. I kind of just want it at the bottom. So now what we're going to do is we're going to shape this so that it acts as the mask. This actually isn't going to do anything inside our simulation. This is just going to be a mask channel. So let's come up here to the fuel buoyancy. And, well, there's a couple things. Let's go to the fuel, and let's go to the dissipation, and let's turn that up a lot. Let's say 35%. Absolute fuel dissipation, let's do like 0.5 and see how that goes. The smoothing factor, I'm actually going to turn this all the way up. I don't want this to be turbulent. I want this to be pretty chill, actually. 35 is maybe a little, it's kind of a lot. Let's go to 20. Okay. Fuel buoyancy. I forget which math this needs to do. This, because I kind of want it to not go up as much. Okay. Right. So now it's not that buoyant. Or it's not going up that much. But I want more of it. So actually, let's go to the dissipation. Maybe bring that down a little bit more. And let's just go to the emitter. And I'm going to bump this up to 20. And again, let's go here. Let's maybe do, well, actually, let's leave this at 15. And maybe let's lower the absolute. A bit more. Okay. Lower this. Okay, so that's going down. We don't actually want that. So the buoyancy, where are you? Let's still want it to go up for the most part. But we want it to kind of just like hang out at the bottom. All right, so that's enough so that we can come in here. Let's go back to our shaded view, which should just look the same because we're not burning the fuel, so it's just there, not really affecting anything. But when we go into our shader, let's grab this one, Pyro, and what we need to do also is in the Pyro object, go here to object, and under fuel, we need to change this to on export so that that gets exported, and then we have access to that in the shader. So now we've got this guy that has fuel. Let's just make a copy of that, and we'll just bring this back to the, oops, default settings. What did I just do there? Okay, not sure. What is this? I've never seen this. Interesting. Okay. So what we are going to do, because we want to use this to mask the temperature, so we can subtract it or do another multiplication. Let's do multiplication. And we're going to take this and invert this. Drop this into here. Let's bring this forward a bit. That's good. Okay, so you can see now how the fuel is masking the simulation. Now it's masking way more than I want. So let's come into here and let's make some adjustments. Oops. Okay, so one of the things, so you can, but what's happening here, what this is telling me is that the fuel is existing for too long in the sim. So we do want to increase the, because since it's affecting stuff all the way up here, that means that those values are still really strong in that area. So we want to increase the dissipation. Let's put that to 20 again. Give that a little time. And that's probably good. Okay. Oh no, this is supposed to be around 1. That's the default. So you can see that now we have kind of a good amount of control to be able to sort of just like fade the fire out as we get closer and closer to the bottom here. Like if we grab this, so let's do this. All right, so now this is a balancing act of the actual settings within the Pyro object and these shader settings. Let's see, what does this do? Because like how soft you want this, sometimes, well, you've got to get the dissipation right, basically. Like right now, it's a little harsh, like the like this edge where we've got stuff and then we don't have anything, and that can pretty much work. Um, but you can, by tweaking these, you can basically see what the sort of like blend is, and how much we have to work with by tweaking this ramp of how soft we can get that before we have to make changes to the actual sim. So we're at frame 54. This kind of looks okay. I kind of want it to be a little bit softer though. So let's stop that. Let's go back to the object. And so what I want is for this to dissipate a little slower. So let's maybe do about 13. We're at frame 54. Okay, let's try again. Okay. And we can see what we've got now. It's okay. Is this all the way? Okay, yep. Let's see if we increase our noise, what does that give us? Not much. And then we can do the range max here, just a touch. So let's do like 0.99. And that gives us that, which is still too much. So we can, all right, I don't want to do too much just tweaking, but that is ultimately the 988, the process. Of the masking. And so really to get that to be perfect, we just kind of have to keep nudging things. Like we might mess with the dissipation. We might emit a bit more fuel. There's a, this is where the sort of long massaging comes in, which can make this like kind of time consuming. So I won't make you sort of like watch me do all that. But ultimately, what we've got here is a pretty good looking fire. It's floating off the ground right now because I put the ground a little bit lower. But yeah, if we bring the ground up to the right spot, and also, where are you? Is the floor? Oh, there you are. Give that a little bit of ability to be lit. And so we've got something like this that looks pretty good. And I'll do a render of this, and then we can see, get a good idea of overall what things are looking like. Okay. So I think that's about it. Hopefully you learned something. As I said, a lot of this is, at least for me, there's a lot of trial and error. If you need some fire right now, again, please, by all means, check out my Real Fire pack on GUMROAD. It helps support the channel. And yeah, I think that's about it for this. If you have any questions about any of this, please leave those in the comments. I'll try and get back to everybody about those. If you do pick up the Real Fire pack, let me know what you think about it in the comments. If something's missing, if something's off, if something's, whatever, let me know so I can fix it. Also, thank you to the people who've picked it up already. We've got a few sales already, so much appreciated. And that'll probably wrap it up for this tutorial. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. You know the deal. And I'll catch you all in the next one. Later.